okay? And they continue to be, in other words, they can engage in $500 billion to $1 trillion a year of money laundering and the profits from that, but still be considered socially respectable. Let me just use another example. There's a wonderful lawsuit. The European Union, on behalf of 11 sovereign nations of Europe, sued RJR Nabisco for money laundering with Saddam Hussein's family, the Russian mafia, Latin American drug cartels, on and on and on. It's the most, it's better than a Tom Clancy novel. And it describes in the lawsuit how this money laundering was done at the highest levels of the corporation. Well, who owned RJR Nabisco at the time of the lawsuit, that the lawsuit describes? Well, it was KKR, okay? One of the most prestigious private equity and leveraged buyout firms in the world. Okay, so at the beginning of this year, we see, Henry Kravis on the cover of, it was either Time or Newsweek, being held out as the next Warren Buffett. Well, no, he's not. He's the next mafioso. Do you know what I mean? But these people are honored because we don't have that kind of transparency in the economy. So there's an official story which has nothing to do with the real story, because we know the real story is being driven by the covert cash flows and the dirty tricks. So we've got the official story, we've got the covert, or sort of what I call the real deal. And let's say a little piece of information about the real deal starts to sneak into the public mind. So because because of the internet, because of all these different ways we have of communicating with each other, people start to realize, well, wait a minute. What is all this stuff about Mena, Arkansas, and the Bushes and the Clinton families being partners on this drug operation and all this and Goldman Sachs and AIG doing these dirty deals with the housing authority? What is all this stuff about Mena, Arkansas? As soon as that happens, what you'll get is what I call attack poodles. They are the official enforcers who are trying to kill anything outside of the official story that pops up. So a massive effort is made to come up with official explanations that incorporate all this, while anybody who's promoting anything outside of the official reality gets hit by the attack poodles. So, for example, we see Gary Webb, who wrote the Dark Alliance story, one of the most incredible pieces of investigative journalism I've ever read. And so I'll never forget when I picked up the Dark Alliance, but I'd heard about the Dark Alliance story but never saw it. It was published in in August of 1996 by the San Jose Mercury News. I never saw it when it up. When the attack poodles got going, the San Jose Mercury News took it down, but Gary Webb published a book. Now, I've worked as an administrator in the federal government, and if you understand the machinery of federal government operations and enforcement and regulation, it's highly complex. Now, a lot of times I'll read a book by somebody and there's all sorts of little mistakes about operations because they've never worked in government and they're not telling the truth. And I'll never forget when I read Gary Webb's book, it was absolutely impeccable. It was everything rang true to me in terms of all the details of operations, regulations, etc., and the fundamental economics. And that's when I know, this guy has the story. Well, if you look at what happened when Gary Webb published it on the San Jose Mercury News, he put up all the legal documents, thousands and thousands of pages of legal documents. And I have friends who are in the minority. They have news businesses in the minority community, the African American community. They downloaded all the documents. And so suddenly you couldn't kill the story. Gary Webb's story was credible with the people because he gave them the hard evidence. He gave them the documents. He wrote a story that absolutely rung true, whether it was in the African American community or to me as a former government regulator. So 360 degrees, it rang true. So what did they do? They turned the attack poodles loose on him. And if you read the story of how Gary Webb was targeted and just literally run out of the news business, it's incredible. So the attack poodles are very, very dangerous. And I know because I've been the target of them. I was, during the litigation We dealt with a smear campaign that was, invasive, unbelievable. There was one group that had is sort of the leader of the effort with 17 full-time people, just mailing packages of information to media and trying to get them to write stories. And we constantly had one reporter who literally would write something that was factually not true. Our attorneys would call. We had to threaten to sue, but they didn't really care. They had no interest in what the truth was. We had an amazing thing where we spent a couple hundred hours with the Washington Post, gave them all the legal documents, everything. They were going to write a story. Literally, in 24 hours, the story disappeared. The reporter wouldn't answer my phone calls, went away. And that left the field open for the attack poodles. And so whether it's stopping a whole bunch of stories or the attack poodles attacking, anybody who tries to build a story outside the official story is attacked. Now, the interesting thing is it doesn't work anymore, okay? And the reason it doesn't work anymore is where you have somebody outside the official story who's prepared to say, I don't want to rise at CNN. I don't want a job from the current administration. I don't want any part of you. I'm just going to sit over here and tell the truth. Alex Jones is a perfect example. I'm going to build my own thing, and I'm going to tell the truth, and I don't care what you all you attack poodles can say and do whatever you want, but I'm going to stand firm on the evidence. The beauty of the internet is we can put all the legal documents up. We can put massive amounts of documents and evidence, and for an audience that's willing to listen to some, people who are going to take the time to read that stuff, it kills the attack poodle. And that's why you're seeing more and more shift. If you look at the media numbers, whether it's, are they reading the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times, or are they watching CNBC, the numbers are swinging and moving towards the people who are telling the story. But there's no doubt about it. Everybody in our world telling the true story has got to deal with attack poodles. In the spring of 1997, the president of CalPERS, the largest pension fund in the country, was on one of my boards, and we gave a presentation to them about my vision of how you could re-engineer the flow of money in communities to rebuild the American economy and do it in a way that would make a lot of money for pension funds. So I had this whole thing on, how we could reinvent America and make sure the boomers had enough for retirement and everything. So the president of CalPERS is in the presentation. He looks at me and he says, "You don't understand. It's too late. They've given up on the country. They're moving all the money starting out of the country, moving, in the fall." So that fall is the beginning of fiscal 1998. October 1, 1997 is the beginning of fiscal 98. $4 trillion proceeds to go missing. So I start writing and publishing all of these stories about, there's $2.3 trillion missing from the Pentagon this year. There's $1.1 trillion. There's $59 billion missing from HUD this year. And, story after story using government documents documenting massive amounts of money are going missing. Okay, so what happens next? John Stossel does this huge story about how people at the Pentagon are using credit cards and not paying the money back. Okay? This ricochets everywhere. It's like the big thing. All my neighbors are saying, "Oh, did you hear about this horrible Pentagon?" Now, the money is less than 1% of 1% of the $4 trillion that's going missing. So basically, while the big boys are walking away with $4 trillion over here, everybody's over here saying, "Oh, they're using credit cards to, buy purses, and this is terrible," And that's the, so we have the attack poodles coming at me because I'm telling the real story. Meantime, we have the John Stossels of this world keeping everybody interested on irrelevant things. When the litigation occurred with me, they tried to set me up on a obstruction of justice charge. What happened was they seized our offices on a false pretext. And while they were in the office, we had shredding bins that were empty. They took trash that we had in a bag that we were saving because we couldn't throw anything out because of the subpoenas. So we had the trash all saved. They opened up a trash bag, emptied the trash into the shredding bin, took corporate accounting records, put it in the bin, and then took pictures of it. And the property manager in the property saw them doing all of that. And he looked at them and he said, "You can't do that. That's falsification." And they said, it was the HUD Inspector General's counsel said, "Shut up, it's none of your business." And after they left, we cleaned up the whole building, and the property manager was so touched. He called me and he said, "I want you to bring your lawyer over. I want to give you an affidavit because they're trying to falsify a charge against you." Well, as this was happening, they wrote us a letter accusing us of throwing away documents, that were, under the subpoena. And so they were clearly trying to set us up on an obstruction of justice charge. Now, he gave us an affidavit, and we turned it in the court, and the court just said, "It's SOP." I didn't know what that meant. So I called a guy who used to work in the HUD IG's office, and I said, "What's SOP?" He said, "Oh, that's standard operating procedure. If they have no evidence of any wrongdoing, they'll just they'll frame you on obstruction of justice." So this goes back again to the fact that, you want to attack them and make them look ridiculous, or if you can't do that, you want to set them up and falsify evidence to get them. But it's one of many different tactics you do to try and keep the population in the official story, and part of doing that is giving them these sort of fake stories like the John Stossel, the modified hangout. If I put money in an investment as an investor and I get a return, I get a dividend or I get an interest, that's my return to the investor. But an investment also has a return to the ecosystem that the investment is in. So let's say we get together and we build a convention center and we buy bonds to finance the convention center, and we get a coupon on our bonds, we get interest. But that also has an impact on the city in which the convention center is built. And that impact can be positive or negative. And I call that the return to the network. Okay? So an investment has a return to the investor, but it also has a return to the network. And the whole return is the total economic return. So we have return to investor, return to network, 1 + 2 = return, total economic return. Okay. The way we've run our economy is we've rigged return to the investors through the government to be positive at the expense of the whole. So we have a positive return to Goldman Sachs, a negative return to the network, and the total is negative. We're shrinking the pie. Goldman and their investors are getting richer, but the pie is shrinking. Okay? Now, it's hopeless if you don't change. In other words, if the tapeworm keeps draining the body will die. However, it's really simple. To me, the host dying is not a good plan. Why don't we simply eject the parasite? Why don't we say, okay, Wall Street, we invite you to grow up and manage your business so it improves the total economic return. The old saying, what's good for General Motors is good for America, was, you build up your manufacturing, you build up your technology, you make better and better products, you sell them successfully around the world, that creates jobs, that creates and so what was good for investors was good for the total economy. Now, the minute we say as a financial system, we're all going to make money on things that have a positive total return, the whole thing spins and turns around. And the funny thing is, particularly if you unsuppress technology, which is available or known or sitting in the labs, there's enough wealth to create wealth that's mind-boggling. I mean, it's just mind-boggling. But that wealth creation requires aligning the interests of the financial system with the interests of people. So we have to, the message from the financial system is, we're going to make money by controlling life, okay? So we're going to give you ID cards, and we're going to have a war on terror, and we're going to patent seeds, and farmers are not allowed to make their own seed or save their own seed. They have to have Terminator seed. And so the financial system is saying, we're going to create a few big corporations, and they're going to control everything, and you're going to do what we tell you. And so it's a force. It's an economy force.